Okay, so sound is on, and I would like to welcome you to this afternoon session on EPD, on the future of EPD, Environmental Product Declarations. And as it's a challenge usually to give a lecture at this time of the day when everybody's getting tired and would rather go for an afternoon nap, I'll keep my presentation short and crispy, and hopefully there will be the one or the other question afterwards so that we can use this time. And doing that means also that I stay on quite high level information, because details can be challenging, can be possibly even misleading if one doesn't have enough time to address them properly. Okay, so you see the cover slide prepared by, try to read it properly in Sweden, Samhällsbyggararenan. And switching now to my cover slide, I'm still the same speaker, and it's still the same topic what I'm addressing. It's the Environmental Product Declarations, the EPDs for construction products. And now I would say so far, also in the 1 or 2 years, 3 years to come, we can address them as nice to have, and they are a business advantage to have. They open the doors to certain businesses, but it's not a tragedy if you don't have it. But, and this is the topic of my presentation, due to legal changes within the European Union, or exactly the European Economic Area, it will be must-have, at least for some products, and I will highlight that why and when. I've made a statement, European Union, European Economic Area. I usually use this opportunity to state something which might be obvious for you, but most of the regulations and directives of the European Union have a little text box at the beginning of the piece of legislation stating text of relevance for EEA, that means European Economic Area, that means 27 EU member states plus Norway plus Iceland plus Liechtenstein. Now for your marketplace, Liechtenstein might not be the most challenging market, but Norway and Iceland, I will assume, does. Okay, first a brief look onto the agenda. What do I want to share with you this afternoon? So these are the topics which I've prepared. As I said, rather short and crispy. So as this presentation is given by me, ARGE, I'm the General Secretary of ARGE, I will briefly explain who ARGE is, or I think in Swedish would be pronounced ARGE. And also SEM Group, who invited me, Jan Segerfeld, being the CEO of SEM Group, kindly asked me to give this presentation to you here. Brief intro. Then obviously, what is an EPD? Most of you will be familiar with it, but I just want to recap, because that leads us also into the question how they are used today. Still, in some countries, very relaxed, very, I would say, disengaged even. And then, obviously, we do have some legal requirements ahead, as I stated in my opening statement. And we will look at 2 selected pieces of legislation, why there are legal necessities ahead of us, where the time that, at least for certain products, it is nice to have an EPD, or it might be a business advantage to have an EPD, while this is moving into an era where it's just a simple must. Okay, last but not least, what I usually do in presentations, I'm repeating my phrasing from this morning in case some of you would fall asleep. I'll just wake you up for the last slide, so there's the takeaway, and then you feel that you have listened to the presentation and you have got the content. So there's this one takeaway slide at the beginning. Here we start with who is ARGE, and who is SEM Group. Now, ARGE is a European Industry Association, and this is also, as our name says, the European Federation of Locks and Building Hardware Manufacturers. So we come from locks and building hardware, but that includes nowadays access control, online access control, electronics as well. Just a few key figures. There are 13 national associations being members of ARGE, one of them being SEM Group here in Sweden, and then there are 12 others, most of them in the EU, but we also have a national association that is a member in in Switzerland, and another one in UK. So that's also interesting because we have to look not only at the EU legislation, but also what concerns these two countries. There are approximately 250 companies within this ARGE family. They are all most of them are mid-sized, a few are very big, but most of them are mid-sized. The workforce, we do have about 50,000 co-workers in this area, in this product range, which I described before. And the companies, again, with locks and billing hardware, electric access control, electronic access control, the annual sales is a bit more than this 10 billion euro as stated here. Then we are just celebrating our 70th birthday. That means ARGE is a bit younger than I am. And we are registered in the European Register of Lobbyists, you could say officially. It's called the Transparency Register, which is very important for our work because as a European umbrella association, we mainly take care of European topics and not of Swedish topics, Italian or Finnish or Spanish or so, because this is dealt with by the national associations being our members. So that's ARGE. An important member of ARGE is the association here in Sweden, that's SEM Group, and it describes itself as the Industry Association for Security in Electronics and Mechanics. From SEM Group's website, SEM Group is the Swedish member association of ARGE and is the natural platform and meeting place for manufacturers and suppliers of physical, electronic and electronic security in Sweden. Companies from small to large in both mechanical and electronic security solutions are eligible for membership in SEM Group. More than 30 member companies are members here in Sweden of the relevant industry association, SEM Group. And one of the key ambitions is to provide information on upcoming EU legislation at an early stage in order to prepare its members, the member companies, about the implementation in Sweden before things happen and not reactive after the change or of a piece of legislation or a new regulation or directive has been passed. This is also where ARGE can provide input, where I also support SEM Group. And last but not least, SEM Group is also a member in Säkerhetsbranschen with a total of 440 companies and 33,000 co-workers in Sweden. So that was the intro. This is what ARGE is doing and what SEM Group is doing. Now I would like to share with you the aim of my presentation now. You can judge afterwards whether I've achieved it. So the aim is to familiarize you with upcoming EU legislation in respect of what we do have in the EPD, Environmental Product Declaration, namely, we do have life cycle assessment indicators. This is actually the core element of an EPD. We'll have a look at it. One of them, very often used as the most prominent one, as the most illustrative one, as the key one, is the famous global warming potential, measured in CO2 equivalent emissions. And we will have a look at it concerning certain construction products. So that's the aim. Now in EPD. Here is actually a screenshot of an EPD, one of the 14 EPDs which ARGE generated for the national associations, that the national associations can share it with member companies. And what you see here by the photo is an EPD for a door closer. And this EPD for the door closer actually needs a brief explanation for those of you who don't know how deep dive you are in EPDs, but here is a brief explanation. So this document, this EPD, that's a couple of pages actually. This is a document which contains, as it's phrased so nicely, objective, comparable information. What is important, verified by a third party. It's not your own calculations and then, okay, that's fine, it's good, so I publish it. It always, an EPD always needs a third party verification. Somebody who is checking the calculation, who is checking the background information, background data and all that. And it actually reports the environmental performance of products and services. Now, I will leave apart the services, we'll stay with most of it, which are the products. And there's a relevant standard, and this is the standard 15804, the EN 15804, a SEM standard, and the latest version is from 2019, as you see in this description here, EN 15804. 2012, it was published the first time 2012. Before that, in Europe, we didn't have an own standard on EPDs. We used the global ISO standard. But then it was customized for European relevance and also needs. So this is the standard what an EPD has to follow when it's published and also when it's verified. There are, as you can read here, there are 13 core indicators. It's quite a list. And I actually just started to say from climate change. As I said before, this famous CO2 equivalent, emission equivalent. And it ends actually with water use. And there's many things in between. I'll just show you a screenshot where we look at the global warming potential in more detail. And there are also in total 6 additional reporting elements, but these are voluntary, whilst the first 13 are mandatory. So this is the EPD, what we have right now. And as I said, this is the relevant standard, and the name of the standard describes it very well. It is Sustainability of Construction Works, Environmental Product Declarations, Core Rules for the Product Category of Construction Products. And that tells you also that EPDs, Environmental Product Declarations, and I'm interrupting myself now, because the problem is that one starts to talk in abbreviations all the time. I'll try to discipline myself, but hopefully you will allow me to talk about EPD and not all the time about Environmental Product Declarations. So EPDs, they are principally made and defined by this standard for construction products. Having said that, because they are so popular, it is so that other branches, they also have started to use them. I know, for instance, some furniture manufacturers, they use EPDs according to this standard. And obviously, it's not wrong of doing it. But designed and defined is the EPD according to this EN 15804 for construction products. Now let's have a look at just one thin slice of it, but it describes well what I mean. Now you can't read that all in detail, but I go to one of the screens, possibly for you it's better to look this one. Here you can see all the modules which are calculated. And if we look at the modules A1, A2, A3, this is raw material supply, transport, manufacturing. In other words, this A1 to A3, this concerns whatever you cause on the environment when producing a product. Then it would go on with transport from the gate to the site, assembly, use, maintenance, repair, and it ends then disposal or reuse, recovery, recycle, and whatever is in between. Now here, this is only one of the 16 core indicators. This is the global warming potential, and this is actually split again in individual lines where I'm not going into detail, but for whoever would like to look at one EPD on the website of a company, you can see here, for instance, A1 to A3, this door closer which I showed, 1 kilogram of door closer would cause 3.09 kilogram CO2 emissions when being produced. Now, keep in mind that the door closer possibly stays on the door for, I don't know, 20 years. And this, let's say, a bit more than 3 kilogram of CO2 emission is about what you cause when you drive a combustion engine, a diesel or a petrol engine driven car for about 40 kilometers. Then you have caused so much CO2 emissions as the production of a product which stays on the door for 40 years. So just to give you a bit of a relevance and also some comparison. Now I'm getting to the question which I addressed at the beginning, or the statement. We will look at how are EPDs used nowadays. There is this text box. EPDs can be provided as PDF and or in machine readable format, usually in XML file, for whole building lifecycle assessment tools. I'll tell you how the reality is. The reality is that in many cases, a company providing a product to a construction company, in our case, construction products, to a construction company, to a wholesaler, to an installer, locksmith or so. The customer is happy if you say, I do have an EPD for my product, I send you the PDF, or I download the PDF from my website, and then the customer says, I see you have a PDF, you're a fine person, so I buy the product from you. In reality, it should be used for calculating what's stated here, whole building life cycle assessment. That means there's one product, there's another product, there's a third product, there's installation, there are building activities, and eventually at the end, I know the impact on the building, or of the building on the environment over the whole life cycle. This is done as well. In certain countries, they're very advanced, but I would say still nowadays it's mainly a question. It's a marketing issue. It's a sales issue. Yes, I do have an EPD, and then people smile and are happy. Okay, so checking the legal requirements ahead, and I start with the strict one. The strict one does not apply on all products, and I'll get to that in a minute, but there is the so-called new Construction Product Regulation, CPR, Construction Product Regulation, and it was revised in 2024, and that made a major change in many aspects, but also in the aspect of having the necessity to provide environmental impact data, life cycle assessment data. So I worded it the following way: for CE marked product, and I'll get to that, for CE marked product under this Construction Products Regulation 2024, life cycle assessment data, and these were all these figures which you saw before, global warming potential, and then the other core indicators, are requested to be stated in the Declaration of Performance and Conformity. This is also defined in the Construction Products Regulation. In the initial stage, it will be only the global warming potential, but then it will be all what I said before, down to the water use. I have to explain now, when I write here CE marked products, not all construction products are CE marked. CE marked means that the legislator believes that such a product relates to a very, as it's called, basic requirement. In our case, and I'm talking now as locks and building hardware guy, in our case, it's so that it's safety in case of fire. Just remember the door closer. Now, if the door closer holds a fire door or a smoke compartment door open, and there's a fire alarm, and then the magnet releases, and the door closer must close the fire door. If this door closer doesn't work, there's a problem, because then the fire would go through, the door is not closed. So therefore, this door closer on this fire-rated door is of high relevance. So therefore, it has to be CE marked. Also, a lock for a fire-rated door, or a panic device, where you have a push bar to get through a door. So these are CE marked. And now you can see what this means. Not only that in this declaration of performance, where you have all the technical details, you also have to state what is the environmental impact. At the beginning, the global warming potential of this product. That's a must. That's clear must. And this is important. There's a so-called digital product passport. The digital product passport is introduced in the European Union, plus Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein, as the future mean of transporting information. So it's not good enough to have it on your website or to have PDFs or even have it machine readable the one way or the other from your website. It has to be a digital product passport. And there will be many tens of billion product passports eventually in the registry of the European Commission. They will be stored decentralized, so it's not done by the European Commission, but they will actually operate the registry. Now, this digital product passport has also to tell me what is the global warming potential of this anti-panic device. So this is important. Digital product passport is a story on its own. Might be able to answer some questions which you have, but using the time efficiently, I'll show you another legal requirement ahead, which is, I would say, less strict, but possibly more important because it applies on all products. The first one, as I said, locks and building hardware, only products which are related to safety in case of fire. And there it's so, if you don't have the global warming potential, and this will take place around 2029, possibly 2030, there's still standards to be prepared, European standards. It is so that if you don't have this, you as a manufacturer or as an importer, you are acting unlawfully if you ship this product. So you're immediately subject to be fined. It's not a matter that you can inform your customer later. You are not allowed to have this product leaving your company if it does not include at the beginning this global warming potential. Another one is actually quite self-explanatory. This is the EU Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. And this applies on all products. Here the advantage is you can ship the product in case somebody buys it. But it could be that nobody is interested in it anymore if you don't have the information on global warming potential. It says here, or I phrased it, sustainable construction will be supported through the calculation of life cycle global warming potential of new buildings across the EU. And now it's important to listen. Under the directive, this calculation will have to be disclosed in buildings' energy performance certificates from January 2028 for new buildings with a floor area exceeding 1,000 square meters, and from January 2030 to all new buildings. That means if you say, okay, EPD or global warming potential, this is something for softies or green people. I don't do that. You can do it if somebody buys your product. But it might be that somebody says, okay, if you don't give me this figure, I can't use your product because I have to provide this energy performance certificate. So last but not least, please everybody listen now. That's the last slide. Take away. EPD right now, they deliver information, data on the environmental performance of the products and services. To date, there's been no obligation at EU level. There was some market request to submit EPDs. So this is the past, and this will be the future for 1 or 2, 3 years to come. But in future, there's the new EU construction products regulation and the EU Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which will introduce an obligation to provide data on the environmental performance of product. So the one way or the other, there will be a must, legally or practically, because the customer would not take your product anymore. So I'm 1 minute ahead of my time, and therefore there's time for questions, and I'll try to give you answers. Thank you very much. Any questions, critical comments? If not, then my mobile clock says it's 14:55. It's exactly the 25 minutes which we have planned. Thank you.